Morning, everybody. Happy to be here in my home state of Iowa, and nice to be here in the wetlands. Seeing a couple of geese around reminds me of something I learned at the University of Iowa. You know how it is when whenever you see the geese flying overhead in the V formation, one side of the V is always a little longer than the other one. You know why that is?
More geese on one side.
More geese, yeah. Okay. Well, as Shelley said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the program that we developed in Colorado, which is kind of a model for this Iowa Edge program, and share some stories and experience with that program, which will hopefully be useful to you all. Just briefly, I'm with a nonprofit called Southwest Energy Efficiency Project, or SWEEP. We promote energy efficiency in 6 Southwest states, and my area is industrial area. And for the last 3 years, I've been managing this program called the Colorado Industrial Energy Challenge, or the CIEC program. The sort of inspiration for creating this program was just kind of a simple idea. We would ask large and medium-sized industrial companies to set a 5-year goal, and that was partly derived from the success of the Climate Leaders Program. And I know a couple of companies here, John Deere, Caterpillar, were involved in that program. And then it was around the same time that Energy Star developed their challenge program, and the Department of Energy developed their Save Energy Now Leaders program. And so you might think, well, what the heck, why do you need, all these different programs doing similar things? But we went ahead with ours, and we think there's real value at a state level, because we can allow companies just to join a facility at a time, or and have more flexibility in the goal setting, whereas the Department of Energy says, well, now they're saying if you want to join their program, it has to be at the corporate level. Every facility in the country has to join, and it's a 10-year goal, 25% in intensity improvement over 10 years, and a lot of companies don't want to think that far ahead. So anyway, so we say, yes, join our program, set a 5-year goal, report your energy use, and we offer, as will be the case here, some annual recognition from our governor's office, and we offer some networking and training, and some free technical assistance. So these are the largest 10 companies in our program now in terms of their total energy consumption. These 10 companies spend an average of $11 million a year on their energy, so obviously that means a couple of the larger ones spend more like $20 or $25 million a year. When we first started the program, we were able to get 13 companies in the program by July of 2010, and we had our first recognition event. And that one, we just gave everybody who committed to setting a goal a certificate saying, yay, you're committing to set a 5-year goal. And now we also recognize 5 companies each year who have the most awesome achievements. What else do I want to say about these? Okay, well, most of them are manufacturers. You can see Climax Molybdenum is a mining company, and Encana is a natural gas company. They have 2 large facilities in Colorado. And we also have 3 ski resorts in the program, and the reason why we say they're industrial is because if you know anything about snowmaking, it takes a lot of compressed air and pumping, so similar to industrial processes from that standpoint. And we also have 3 water or wastewater utilities in our program, and again, they also use a lot of energy for pumping. And all the rest of them are manufacturers of one sort or another. We tend to have a large contingent of beer. We have Anheuser-Busch and Miller Coors, which is good for our networking events, because if we do it at one of their sites, then we tend to do it in the afternoon so that we can sample some of their product at the end of the networking meeting, which is nice, promotes more networking. And we also have some of the supply chain. Right Mountain Metal Container makes cans for Miller Coors. OI makes the bottles for Anheuser-Busch. And there's another company not listed here, Golden Aluminum, that I'm going to talk about in a minute, that makes the rolled aluminum, which goes to the can makers. So we have a lot of the suppliers for the beer industry. New Belgium is also in the program. They make better beer, and they're a little smaller. So two of the aspects of the program that I think are perhaps the most useful and most relevant to our discussion today about the Iowa Edge program is our annual recognition events and our networking meetings. So it's similar to this meeting today. So this is from our recognition event in 2012, and these are the two top companies that we recognized last year, Miller Coors and Acana. And sometimes the facility managers try to pretend that they don't really care about the recognition, like, oh yeah, okay, we'll take the certificate. But actually they really do. And they get a lot of mileage out of this, mainly in their internal newsletters. Like, you know, here's a picture, in this case it's not the governor, it happens to just be the head of the energy office. We couldn't get the governor this year, but hopefully we're going to get the governor next year. But still, you know, here they are getting their picture taken, getting an award, and so they put it in their internal newsletters. They get some more visibility with their other peers at other facilities, and hopefully with their managers, and they get a little more recognition. So they actually do really appreciate this. And these two companies last year just did awesome things, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, and it just sets a great example, and I'd like to think it creates a little healthy competition between companies, and think, okay, maybe I can get that next year. That's probably just my fantasy, but that's what I think is going on. You know, everybody's excited about getting the award next year. So the other aspect of the program, which the companies have told me is very useful to them, is our networking meetings. And as one of my colleagues in the Southeast who runs a similar sort of networking thing told me, he said, you know, if you just get a bunch of facility managers together and give them a pot of coffee, then good things happen. And he says, you know, I can almost stand back and get out of the way and just let them talk to each other, and it's valuable in itself, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. But at the same time, it does take some effort on my part to set these up, and generally the formula that we use is we start off with a couple presentations by companies about cool projects that they've implemented recently, and then maybe there'll be one presentation by a member of my team, maybe stressing some aspect of strategic energy management, and then we try to break into smaller groups and have like some kind of open discussion about what's everybody working on, what kind of challenges are you having, and those are really useful as well. And then we usually have a site tour. So we rotate these around and let different companies volunteer to host them. And the site tours are always very interesting as well. So we've had 9 networking meetings so far. They've been pretty well attended, an average of 15 people from the companies in addition to other people. We don't allow any vendors or consultants to come because I don't want these facility managers to feel like they're being preyed upon, and I also don't want to like inhibit their willingness to share ideas with each other. And the only issue in terms of that is Miller Coors and Anheuser-Busch are direct competitors. So when Anheuser-Busch hosted the meeting, they said, well, could you just ask the Miller Coors people not to come? So I said, okay, and they understood. And then now the next meeting is going to be at Rocky Mountain Metal Container, which is the can maker for Miller Coors, and it's right at the brewery. And so they said, yeah, tell the Anheuser-Busch people that we prefer if they not come this time. So that's the only issue, though. Everybody else, they're making different things, and so they're very happy to share their stories with each other. Everybody's using compressed air, everybody's interested in LED lighting, and everybody's interested in how to get more money from their managers to invest in projects as a common theme. So very good discussions. One of the things that, like, just a couple of quotes. The energy manager from Amgen is one of our more sophisticated programs in a way. He said, well, you know, I can't point to any one thing that I've learned, but I always pick up something in the side conversations that we have. And for example, I knew we were doing a pretty good job with our free cooling, but I was really interested in what Avigo was doing, and I learned something from that. And one of the other energy managers said, well, you know, I struggle a lot getting support from my managers, and they don't give me a lot of money. And I was very happy to hear that a lot of the other energy managers are having the same issue. And so it's kind of like a men's group. Everybody's sharing their pain and getting some support for what they're trying to do. There's one woman, I should say. It's not just a men's group. The energy manager for Miller Coors is a woman. I think everybody else is of the male orientation. So I'm not going to go through these. This is very similar to what Bruce was just talking about, but what I want to highlight here is that one of the things that I think is useful about our program is the encouragement we give the companies to set a goal. And that's a key point. This is from a paper by the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance and Bonneville Power Administration. So again, very similar to what Bruce was just saying, but probably the most important thing is getting some management support for a long-term goal. And so I'd like to think that by requiring companies to set a goal to join our program, I'm giving their program a little kickstart or helping them. And of the 29 companies that are in our program, I think only 2 of them already had a goal. And then so I said, okay, that's a good goal, that's fine, you can use that goal. The other 27, even though some of them said, well, we have a corporate goal, but we don't have a facility goal yet, or, well, we're kind of thinking about a goal, but we haven't quite developed it yet. So then through conversations with me or my team, then we help them develop a goal and get their managers to sign off on it. So I think that's a useful process, as Bruce was saying, and I think it's a useful first step to engage the management. So I want to talk a little bit about how to set a goal, and it's not always as easy as just saying, well, we make this kind of product, and so we'll say our goal is a 10% improvement, and we'll take the total energy consumption per pound of product or something. So that works pretty well for beer. You can say energy consumption per barrel of beer. That's what all the beer makers do. That works great. But here's some examples where it's a little more complicated. So Avigo Technologies makes semiconductors. Anybody here making electronics products? Okay. So there's sort of a correlation with how many wafers or chips they make, but it's not very strong. I'll show you in a minute. And they have a lot of clean rooms, so they have a high HVAC load, so there's also a lot of dependency on weather. Same thing with Fort Collins water. If they have to pump more water, energy consumption goes up a little, but surprisingly, it's not very much. So again, it was helpful to look a little more closely at the data. And Western Sugar is an interesting one because, okay, they knew that their energy consumption depended on how many pounds of sugar. That's their main product, obviously. But they were also concerned that there's some variation with how many tons of beets they have to process because the sugar content of the beets can vary. So they were concerned that in a future year they might get penalized if the sugar content of the beets was lower, meaning they had to process more beets. So we took a look at that. Oh, and by the way we combine total energy consumption is we take the electricity in megawatt hours times 10. That's a beautiful number. It makes the math very elegant, rather than 3.4, because then it takes into account the generation and transmission losses, puts the cost of electricity on more per MMBTU on a more equal footing with the fuels, and this is a very nice way to do it, and the DOE sort of recommends that as well. So, and then I guess Energy Star has a similar tool, but DOE has a free tool called their EMPI tool, which I'm going to show you a couple of examples from. So here's a look at Avigo's data, electricity consumption versus here production. You can see that's not a very awesome correlation. It's kind of a mess, but there's sort of a correlation there. And a pretty good correlation with cooling degree days, again, because it has so many air changes and high HVAC load. And, but then what the tool does is gives you a nice equation. And the interesting thing in their case is this 4.9 million kilowatt hours per month is like 85% of their maximum monthly consumption at full production. So usually they just have a huge base load at that facility, and it doesn't vary that much depending on how many wafers they produce. So my point is now this is the way we're going to measure progress. This is their model. The tool allows you to then in a future year just put in how many kilowatt hours, how many wafers, and how many cooling degree days, and it tells you how much energy did you save compared to the base year. So it's a very nice tool, and this is much better than just saying, well, we'll take our total consumption, divide by the number of wafers, and see how that compared with the base year. So Western Sugar, most of their consumption is coal and electricity, so we took a look at that compared to sugar production. This is a very good correlation, not so good with beets. And on the other hand, the natural gas consumption is much better correlated with beet sliced, and that's because most of the natural gas is used in their limestone kiln, and that's only fired when there are beets being processed. So what we do here is we said, okay, we use this for coal and electricity, and we use this one for the natural gas. And now again, they have a very nice model, and they can use this in future years to measure how much improvement they've actually made. So just a couple of examples of how I think the program has helped a few of our partners. So gold aluminum, again, they make the rolled aluminum that goes to making beverage cans. They use a fair amount of energy to, melt aluminum. So about 1 year after joining our program, and I can't take full credit for this, but I think maybe partly inspired by joining our program, they decided to devote a few more resources to energy management. So they actually hired a new position, their quality and sustainability manager, and he's able to spend about half of his time on energy. And he's doing some really good things. And secondly, they happen to be in an area where their utility does not offer any technical assistance, and so we offer them a free energy assessment. And they are actually implementing most of our suggestions, and when they are all implemented, they will be saving about $200,000 a year, which is pretty good. Another example, the Henderson Mine. At the same time that we engaged with them and encouraged them to join our program, we also encouraged them to join Xcel Energy's process efficiency program. And they were just not connecting for some reason. And so I said, well, this is a really good program. Xcel offers you really good incentives and assistance. You should take advantage of it. So anyway, just things worked out, and they did join that program. And secondly, again, this could be just my fantasy, but I would like to think that our goal setting process will help them engage their management and get a little more support for them. Last example, Carestream Health. Not unusual, their energy manager is very busy, and he complains that he doesn't get a lot of support from his management in terms of money. He has to meet an 18-month simple payback hurdle, and that's very difficult, but still, he keeps plugging away. Comes to all the networking meetings, usually brings one or two of his people with him. He actually got recognized last year for being one of the top 5 performers, and he's taken advantage of some of our technical assistance. Again, he's in an area that the utility doesn't offer much. And just through a combination of those things, I just think he really appreciates the support of the program, and he continues to plug away and do some good stuff with the resources that he has. How am I doing? Do I have a couple more minutes? Okay. So I'd like to just tell brief stories about our 2 top winners last year, Encana and Miller Coors, and why they're good examples. Encana, this one is just a large compressor station, and you might think, well, that's pretty different than what we all do, but anyway, they have 8 7,500 horsepower electric natural gas compressors. They're compressing their processed gas so they can get it into the pipeline. And so they use a boatload of electricity. And you'd think, well, why were they already on top of this? But it's maybe like Bruce was saying, like in the first couple of years of really focusing on it, you can maybe make some big improvements. So lo and behold, they started to really focus on this. They hired a consultant to do more detailed monitoring and try to optimize keeping the compressors fully loaded. Of course, they're more efficient if they're fully loaded. Made a few tweaks. And from 2010 to 2011, they actually saved 20% of their energy costs, their energy consumption, about $4 million a year, which is really amazing. So they sort of knocked the ball out of the park in terms of that particular year, and then now with their monitoring system in place, they'll continue to be able to identify any glitches and find any problems and correct them. This is the Miller Coors Golden Brewery. Happens to be the largest brewery in North America, and there's some challenges with that. It's an old brewery, and but they're an excellent example because they have now all the systems of strategic energy management or continual improvement approach in place. They have teams, they have incentives for employees who come up with suggestions, they have specific goals, and they have like a monthly meeting to look at the pipeline of projects and how they're being managed and who's doing what. And management is really engaged. They have 2 different pots of money they can draw from to invest in energy projects. So they're getting a lot of management support, a lot of detailed attention being paid to their energy. And from 2010 to 2011, they reduced their energy consumption by about 7.5%, and which for them that's a lot of money. And they're continuing to make improvements every year. The energy manager there just told me yesterday that in the first 3 months of this year, they made a huge improvement compared to the first 3 months of last year. So here's a look at our overall savings, and the program really can't take credit for this, but we take a little credit. We say, these are our companies, and they're doing good things. So from 2009 to 2012, the companies have achieved an average savings of 4.6% per year, which is pretty impressive, and $12.5 million per year of now reduced energy costs in 2012 compared to when in 2009. This is from 22 companies who have reported their data. So that's what I have to say. Any discussion? Questions, comments? Yes?
How often do you have your networking meetings, you say with your groups? How often do you guys get together?
Yeah, we do it about once every 3 months. Because I ask people, well, what do you think? And they basically said, once a month that would be too much. And so once a quarter is about right. Yes?
So, what are Miller Coors' two buckets of money that they can access to their projects?
Yeah. One of them is specifically like resource conservation bucket. Let me see if I can remember. I think one of them is a specific energy bucket, and the other one is more broadly any kind of environmental improvement. So, I think those are the 2 buckets, and they still have to meet, like they said, usually their projects have to meet like a 20% ROI hurdle. But that, I don't know how many of you have. That's pretty good. 20% ROI. If you can get companies, the managers to go for that, you can do a lot with that. And whereas I would say, I don't know, a third of the companies in this program has to be less than 2 years. Yeah, that's really typical, unfortunately. I don't know, do you have any separate pots of money in here? No? Yeah. The first example I heard of that was Lockheed Martin a few years ago, and who's the guy whose son is the project guitar player? I forgot his name. Oh well, it doesn't matter. He was instrumental in getting Lockheed Martin to agree to set aside like $1.5 million per year, and then that money can only go for efficiency projects. So if you can somehow convince the management to do that,